Hi guys, thanks for tuning in and welcome to another episode of Filmmaker Talks. Today my guest is Carlos Quintero. He is also a filmmaker based in Fargo, North Dakota. Correct me if I'm wrong. And by the way, he's also a YouTube channel with great content on camera reviews and comparisons. So we'll link that for you down below. So definitely check that out. And also, if you're just watching, this will be also available as a podcast, which I will also link down below. And if you're listening in a podcast at the moment, just for a notice, we will also record it and upload it on YouTube. And the link is also in the description. So, hi Carlos, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. Really appreciate that. Basically, I'm doing fine. How is the COVID situation in the US currently?
It's improving a lot. They're opening up a lot of more businesses. We're getting out there and filming more often, which is really nice. A big change from last year.
Yeah. How would you say did impact COVID your business?
It hit us kind of hard. As an example, I didn't have to lay anyone off. We have a small team, like 13 people that work for the company, and no one got laid off. But I personally did not take a paycheck from February of last year until January of this year. So it definitely affected the projects and the quantity of projects and the quality of projects that we were going after. But fortunately, there's light at the end of that tunnel and everything is looking better. So
yeah, hopefully things can only get better, right? One thing I wanted to ask you, because I've listened to that in one of your YouTube live streams, I think. So you also started as a solo kind of one-man band, is it right? And now you're having a bigger production company, as you've mentioned, right?
yeah, so when I started in programming. So I'm a programmer. I went to college to be a programmer. And because it felt like I was ripping out my heart every time I was writing code, I started seeking other things to do. And that led me down the marketing path. And that's how I got involved with commercial filmmaking, which is the main thing that I do now.
Mm-hmm. So how would you describe your filmmaking journey?
Lucky. I think more than anything, it was right place, right time with the right people. And that is what took me from shooting one TV commercial for one radio group to basically being the production house for multiple radio stations across the Midwest. And that really helped get the company from zero to profitable in like a handful of months. So that was really nice. So luck is the way that I could describe it.
Yeah. What would you say if you look back? What would be the things that have influenced your success, so that you could grow from a single person shooter to now like a bigger production company? What were the things that affected that?
Sure. So I think one of the main items that impacted both the types of clients, the quantity of clients, and then the repeat business was having an understanding that these people need to make money. So whichever project I was involved in, yes, my skills were needed, but helping them navigate through how to tell their story in a way that's going to be received well by their own audiences, I think that was what made the biggest difference. Because very quickly on, from the very first campaign that I was involved with, they were measuring against, and it was like, if this works, we'll do it again. So I did research before I even showed up at the client and gave them multiple ideas, and their own team, you know what, this is actually leading to collaboration. Like, I didn't do it by myself. it happened because I did sort of my homework. I brought my skills to the table. I presented it to them, and they gave me feedback, and together we came up with what made it work. And ultimately, if they made money, they kept hiring me. And that was my main motivation. If I can sort out how my clients are going to be successful, then I'm going to get repeat business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually that I can also say from my point of view, because I think many people that are just starting out are kind of underestimating the business side of things. So because I think the most important thing is that you that you first need to understand the business problem of the client. Sure, they want to hire you for a video, but actually behind the need of a video, there's a business problem. Like they wanna use the video to hire another people. They want to sell their products or whatsoever. So the better you as a filmmaker or a content creator can understand, the more you can help the client and be more valuable for them, I think.
Yeah, just this week we got a new corporate documentary project that we're working on, and the business goals behind the corporate documentary is not just to say, "Hey, look at us, this is what we're doing," but rather to show the culture of the company, because recruitment is a big cost center problem for a lot of companies. So being able to keep their employees happy, making their employees feel value, and letting them know that there is this culture that the company is actively working on evolving and making sure that people are the center point of their company, makes their internal employees happy, but then also lets other people that might be considering working for them want to be part of that culture. And that's what we're doing through a corporate documentary, which is not like an intuitive business goal of a corporate documentary, but that's how the conversation started and why we ended up getting that project.
Yeah, exactly. Whenever I'm talking with clients, so like the thing we call it employer branding is actually really important, especially if you're living or working in the area, which is so personally, I live in the south of Germany, so close to 2 hours to Munich. And I know that many companies from here, they're big companies and they have nice products and everything, but they always have the problems that the people are going to go to Munich and they need something to keep the people here. And therefore, I think, especially in those areas, the recruiting videos are really crucial for them.
Yeah, it's always really interesting because it doesn't matter where you're at in the world or even in the country, the size of the communities that you're servicing, they tend to have similar challenges. So that's actually another thing that we started doing. I started doing with my production company, is if we came up with a type of idea that say works for a fitness company or a clothing company or an attorney or a dentist, then we looked at which other markets that we could travel relatively inexpensively to, and we started actively pitching those ideas to those types of clients. So that allowed us to ramp up our number of clients, really, and ramp up the number of projects that we're able to execute in a month or in a year even. And that was a good strategy, and also one that we kind of stumbled upon. Like, I didn't know prior to my first attorney client that depositions are important, and video depositions are really important. So if we can offer video deposition services, now it's not creative work, right? And it's not work where we get to show our style of filmmaking and anything like that. But at the end of the day, like I tell Bert, who some people may have seen her on my channel, she's my wife, I'm coin operated. Like, we're working to make money. And sometimes that has to like sink in, to know that we can't just go after the creative projects that we want. We need the foundation of the projects that are allowing us to stay in business.
Yeah, absolutely true. So, how are you? What is your process when you approach a new client that you want to work with? What is your process or the process of your team exactly?
Sure. So it's it's a little involved in that we target verticals. So, like I mentioned, dentists or attorneys, construction companies, and so on. So we target verticals, and what that allows us to do is we can very quickly see who is actively advertising, which means they're used to spending money, right? Who is not actively advertising, how many employees or how big is their facility, and if it's substantial or if their competitors are advertising but they're not, then that gives us a reason to talk to them. And if they are in fact advertising and we can show them how that advertising might be either overspending or missing their target audience, then that gives us another reason to talk to them. And then the best part of all is because we do it in verticals, if I'm targeting an attorney again, and I present this idea and he says no, I go right down the list of every other attorney until somebody says yes. And typically, you only need to make 3 or 4 of those calls before somebody wants to talk to you. And that's really kind of our process. So we take a look at what is happening. We know that if they're advertising, they understand that spending money is important to make sure that they're relevant to their customers. And that's a huge reason why we would want to talk to them. Or if all of their competitors are advertising and they're not, then that again gives us a huge opening to talk to them. And those are the two main avenues that we go after clients with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. And you just give them a cold call and just introduce yourself and then come up with some ideas, or how is the usual phone call look like?
Yeah, so this is the part that I normally don't get involved in. This is what Bert does. So Bert will actually give them a call, let them know how she found them, who we are, and what we think we might be able to help with. And she asks for either a Zoom call appointment or a face-to-face appointment. And if for some reason they say no, then she just calls someone else. If they say yes, then we begin doing like our deep dive research. We begin to understand sort of who they go after, what they've been advertising for, if that's what they do. We have a couple people on the team that focus strictly on SEO. So they begin to dig into whether someone has or has not spent money on AdWords. What does their website look like? What are their current rankings? Who are they mainly competing against? What's their main audience? And by the time that we show up to a client, we'll let them know what it is that we think we understand about them and let them fill in the gaps. And that's usually how our conversations begin. And when we do this, the client very quickly understands that we're not trying to push a product on them. We're trying to understand their business. And that allows them to engage and open up conversations with us. And once they know that we've done some homework, we have some understanding of who they are and what they're trying to do, then they begin to talk about their challenges. And that's when we say, hey, let us take a look at your challenges. We'll come back with some creative ideas that might help overcome those challenges and let us present them. And that's usually the way the calls go.
Yeah, that's totally agree. I think most people also underestimate like doing the homework. So kind of say prepare for the first meeting with the client, because on the one hand it also kind of impressed the clients if you know what they're doing and what their marketing look like, and then also it shows that you have a understanding for their need, which I think is always really helpful. Yeah, really interesting so far. um, how, yeah, one other question I wanted to ask you, because I think personally you are the kind of YouTuber that has, at least that I'm following, that has the most amount of gear in terms of various camera brands. So, really interested in that. What is your personal favorite camera and why?
Oh, that's such a tough question. My personal favorite camera by far is the Red 8K Monstro. And I realize that that's, you know, it's unattainable for a lot of people. And it's a very expensive camera. It's a very expensive ecosystem to get into. But the main reason why I like it is because other than putting it on a handheld gimbal, which I don't use, or mounting it inside of a vehicle, which again, I don't use, I don't do that. There isn't a situation in a commercial production or even a corporate production where I can't walk in and walk out with exactly what I needed out of that camera. And my post-production process is super fast. Like, I can bring in my red code RAW into my computer, apply the red IPP2 LUT on it, make some very minor curve adjustments, and my image looks like it belongs on a big screen. That to me is really, really valuable. There are other cameras, I just made a comparison with my R5, which I love my R5. And it could be made to look or mimic the red image. But what I didn't show in that video is that it took me almost 2.5 hours to manipulate the Canon RAW so that it resembled red code RAW. And that time is the reason why I didn't say the R5 or the C500 Mark II and so on.
Yeah, actually, I also shot with the R5 a couple of times, and also back then with the C200. And I think it was in your video where I was kind of surprised, because whenever I used Canon RAW, the options that I have were always kind of limited. But when I saw what you're able to with is the Canon C500 offering a different RAW version than the C200, for example? Because when you shared your screen, I was like, oh, well, what are these adjustments?
Yeah, so at some point, Resolve actually went through an update that allowed for the RAW to be decoded using full resolution Canon, which meant they opened up all of the RAW controls. And that's really what changed. But you're right, before that, we had a lot more limited ability to change RAW.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree with you, because so I'm a Komodo owner since like a couple of months now, and by far the image from the Komodo is from my standpoint the best that I've shot with. So I also shot with the C200, Blackmagic Pocket, and all these so to say sub 10K cinema cameras, but also was involved in bigger projects where we had like bigger reds, and I think the image quality that you get is outstanding, and also the red code RAW. I'm always amazed how fluid it's a pleasure to work with in post production. So really great. So one question that comes into my mind: is it just because you want to try out different camera brands, or for example, you say your most favorite camera is the Red Monstro, and you also use alongside other cameras, like for example C70, C500. Are you using those because you think those cameras are better for specific jobs, or because obviously it also has like some advantages sticking to one ecosystem, for example Red or something like that, right?
Yeah, so one thing I've never said on my channel is that with my small crew, I'm running 3 crews. So any given day, we could be in 3 different production sites. And that means I need more gear, because if I was renting, I would be losing money. The other thing that I've never said on my channel before is that I have clients that are across the US. So if I have clients on the East Coast, I need to leave and have gear and have a location, which I do, on the East Coast that is ready and available to service those clients. So that's one of the reasons why we have multiple cameras. Another thing I've never said before is that if I'm shooting on Red Monstro, I'm charging Red Monstro production pricing to those clients. I don't use a camera for all of my clients. So if a client is paying for corporate or commercial work, then generally speaking, they're on a Canon. So I'm on the C500 Mark II, the C70, and if there are stills involved, then the R5. The R5 is mainly a stills camera for us. If it's a commercial production, something that is going to be running on national television, then generally speaking, all of that work is shot on Red for me, and it has now for the last 8 years. And then I bought the Sony cameras because one of my East Coast clients in their studio for TV related work, they all use Sony cameras, which really meant I was going to not be able to participate if I couldn't have my camera operator show up with the Sony camera. So I didn't want to lose that account, which is the reason why I bought the FX6.
Yeah, great camera, and I'm really impressed what Sony is doing, especially in the mirrorless market. So really great. And thanks for all these insights that you just mentioned for the very first time. That's really interesting. So when you're shooting like a normal commercial, as you said, with the Canon, or do you mainly shoot RAW on the C500, or do you just shoot I think it's XFAVC it's called, right?
Yeah. So generally speaking, I don't shoot RAW on the C500 Mark II unless I'm going to be in a really high dynamic range environment. So like in this corporate documentary, there are a number of shots where we're going to be outdoors using natural light or bouncing light off of reflectors, and there are moving parts. So there's one scene where we're showing how big this organization is by having a complete fleet leave their establishment and essentially fill up an entire road full of their vehicles that are all marked up. We're going to have a camera on a drone. So we're going to be flying a camera, we're going to have a rover, and we're going to have a Steadicam operator also covering, and we're doing this all in one shot because of how many people are involved and how many moving parts are there and what that actually costs to reset every time that we'd have to reset. Every camera in that situation is going to be shooting in RAW, just to make sure that if anyone made a mistake, that we have an opportunity to recover that shot.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's. Are you also using the Komodo?
This is going to be 3 C500 Mark IIs. That's what we're using.
Yeah. Okay. But you had the Komodo on your channel, right?
Yeah, I have the Komodo, and the Komodo is basically my Monstro companion.
Okay. Yeah, that totally makes sense. So, what do you think? I guess you also shot on Arri 1 or 2 times.
Yeah, I don't have an Arri camera, but I have had to rent them for productions before. I have 2 clients that are German based. One of them is Horsch and the other one is Casboer. And both of those clients in the negotiation, I don't know if they were like joking with me or whatever, but they mentioned, wanting to keep the German brand and theme going. So I rented Arri cameras for those projects because it felt like it was the right thing. And I don't know if that's the reason why I got the projects or not, but I did use them. I have used them here in the States also on a couple of projects over the years. And Arri cameras are lovely. It's just I always say this, for dedicated cinema cameras, you need a solid lighting budget because Arri cameras have horrible ISO performance.
Yeah.
But if you have enough light, they produce an image that's, pretty outstanding.
Yeah, and I think also the most Arri shooters that I know are just most of the time are shooting in 12-bit ProRes 444 anyway, because the Arri RAW is kind of not really user friendly. I'm not sure. I've never used that, but I think it's really really great that that you can actually produce such images only with 12 bits. So
and it is a beautiful image. And typically, at least for me, when I am working with or have worked with Arri, because I haven't now for, I'm going to say 8 or 9 months, I have not touched an Arri camera. But when I have worked with Arri cameras, usually I'm hired to either be the DP or be the DPN operator, and I go do the work, and I literally hand off the files to someone else, an agency or anybody else. It's not a project that we're all doing it in-house with my team.
Yeah. So we already touched on like a little bit like post-production workflow. So you mostly use DaVinci Resolve, right?
I use, mostly Resolve. Sometimes I'll finish, like if I have animations or titles that we're also then adding, then I will use Premiere Pro and After Effects. Final Cut, unless if it's a personal project, I'll use Final Cut, but otherwise it feels too much to me like iMovie, which is not which is not really the way that I could collaborate with my team. So that's why we don't do that.
Yeah, so I mostly also work only in Resolve. So I switched from Premiere, I think 2 years ago. But I find myself very often when I want to do like a title animation to do it in After Effects, because it is so much more quickly for me, because I know how everything works and I'm just still not 100% in Fusion just yet.
Yeah, I haven't even started to tackle Fusion, and it's like I'm comfortable in After Effects and I'm comfortable with Premiere. So do I take the time to learn Fusion or do I just do what's easy? And that's kind of where I'm at. So slightly lazy maybe.
Yeah, but I think it's really great what they made to out of Resolve what it is right now, because I think also like when you're working on Premiere, like the dynamic link system, it works fine, but it's something totally different if you have kind of, so to say, everything in one application with Fairlight. And even though it's more limited than, for example, Audition, but I think it's the workflow is really efficient in Resolve. So at least from my perspective.
Yeah, and for audio, I use RX8. So I don't use Audition, which means I need to round trip my files anyway. And but I'm really like what I can get out of RX8 for me is better than what I can do, at least with my skill set. I'm sure there are people that are way better than me that could dance circles around it, but I can't get the quality that I can when I'm using RX out of Audition.
Okay, yeah. So you're based in North Dakota. Have you always lived in North Dakota or just moved there?
No, so I'm originally from Long Beach, California, so Southern California. That's where I was born and raised. And one of my clients happens to be United Healthcare Systems. They're a large insurance company that's based out of Minneapolis. So Minneapolis to where I'm at is roughly 3.5 hours away. And because they're one of my clients, I would visit them at least one time a month. And on one of those flights, I met my wife. So I was then visiting the clients and then also visiting my wife as we were dating. And after like 3.5 years of this, me flying basically 3 or 4 weeks a month, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna move. And I did, I moved. That's how I ended up in Fargo, North Dakota.
Yeah, it's kind of the same reason, even though the distance were not quite as big here in Germany, but I also moved to the south because I'm from Berlin, which is more like upper east north side of Germany. Moved to the south for my girlfriend. Yeah. Yeah, but so you moved to the cold area, right?
Yep, I moved to the cold area. And you know, it's not as bad as, I don't know, I've always enjoyed the cold. Like, I love to snowboard. I love to ski before snowboarding was a thing. So I would always go on trips with my friends to the mountain so I can get, you know, on the slopes. And when I came here, I was like, this is going to give me the opportunity to, you know, participate in more winter activities. What I didn't realize is how flat North Dakota is. So to actually go skiing or snowboarding, I actually need to drive a couple hours. but it's still, you know, it's fun. The cold doesn't really bother me. We only go through really 2 weeks maybe of severe cold. The rest of the time, it's not bad.
I'm not sure because I'm not from the US, as you know, but I think what I always hear when I'm just going through YouTube, that many people are saying, yeah, when you want to be like successful, whatever that means to anybody, right? In filmmaking, you have to kind of be in the area of either New York or Los Angeles. I'm not sure. What is your kind of standpoint on this discussion?
Yeah, so to me, that's actually a really interesting discussion. I think that if you want to be a narrative filmmaker, then you will have more opportunities in larger markets. If you want to make money, then it doesn't really matter the size of the market. And I realize that sounds a little callous, but you know, we've had years where our revenue exceeded $13 million. That's not bad for a small team of people. Am I successful? You know, I don't have any movie credits under my name, but I think we're doing okay. So success is measured, I think, in a different way for different people. If I was always just trying to pursue my creative passion and not necessarily think about making a living or thinking about my retirement or, you know, my staff and so on, then I would probably feel very lonely where I'm at, because there aren't a lot of other creative groups, people, you know, at all levels. I'm not even just talking about other people that are camera operators or owner operators. There are fewer actors, there are fewer screenwriters and so on in smaller markets. But that's also what presents the opportunity to flip it, for me anyway, and turn it into a making money opportunity instead of me shooting my feature film. So I think that that's really sort of the differentiator. And I'm never going to pretend that I will ever be, you know, Shane Hurlbut. That's not going to happen in the stuff that I do, and I'm okay with it. The stuff that I do allows me to pay the bills, keep my family happy, keep my staff happy, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think success is really hard to describe because it can mean something totally different for every people. So yeah, I think you described it really well. One thing that I was kind of curious, because here in Germany, the kind of um, movie career is kind of different, and we don't have all these fancy words. Let me put it that way. I was always asking, what the heck is a feature film? I know here in Germany we also have a short film. I know a short film is something different than a feature film, but is a feature film different than like a Hollywood movie, or what is that?
No, so basically a feature film would be the Hollywood movie. So roughly 2 hours instead of a short film, which could be 5 to 20 minutes.
Ah, yeah. Okay. Got that. Okay. Yeah, okay. One thing that I also wanted to ask you is when we say you're working on a corporate video, how is your personal approach about the whole story of the video? Are you discussing it together with your client, or do you have always a specific idea in mind?
So we always back into the idea with the problem. So we identify the problem, and in our story breakdown or even in our storyboarding, we always start with, here's a challenge or a situation that needs resolution, and the resolution is the story arc, and of course the climax of it is either the product or the information that our clients are trying to do. So we try to stick as much as we can around that and keep it as simple as possible, because we have 30 to 60 seconds to tell that story. And we try to keep it as creative as we can by making sure we get multiple shots, right? So generally speaking, that's kind of how we do it. So we always, after we meet with the client, we identify their challenge. We ask if we can let our creative team sort of come up with how we might be able to help. And that's when we present our storyboard, and we do just kind of what I did with you now, and say, okay, if this is the problem, then these are the reasons why this became a problem. Now let's show you the hero of how to resolve that problem and cram it all into a 30 to 60 cent commercial or 30-second commercial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very interesting. What kind of lenses are you using on your different systems? Or do you have some favorite lenses that you actually use?
Well, favorite lenses, that's tough. The favorite lens for me is always the lens that I own and I don't have to rent. But generally speaking, or maybe 75% of the time, I'm shooting with Canon cine primes. They're affordable, they're fast, they're color matched, so it doesn't matter which camera system they're on, whether they're on 2 Reds or 2 Canons. I don't have to deal with discrepancies. I can match the T-stops, and that helps set up the shots, the workflow, and so on and so forth. So that's mainly what I use. Last year, when COVID hit, and I couldn't have a first AC with me on some of the projects, I started relying heavily on stills lenses from Canon because of the autofocus features of some of their cameras, and that helped a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really surprised how good the autofocus works on Canon, and I was also really surprised how it actually were on the Komodo. It's not like the same as, for example, on the C70, but I was kind of surprised how well it focuses. So it's I think the market or the options that we have now as a filmmaker are totally great. So
the cost of entry is so affordable, for sure.
yeah, a friend of mine said it's the golden era of filmmakers. So cameras don't tend to cost like 100K and even above. So basically, you can shoot a whole movie on a Sony A7S if you know what you're doing. So sure, every camera has its downsides and its limitations. Oh my god! But as soon as you know what the limitations are of your camera, I think you can make a really great job. And also, therefore, I personally don't like to rent cameras because, I want to know my system, and I want to know how the camera works and performs in even given situation that I might be in. So
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, though, it also presents a new problem, right? Because now consumers see some of the cameras that we like, right? They begin seeing the Sony A7S III. Oh, wow, I could buy that at Best Buy or, the local store or whatever. And I'm paying you to do this. Maybe I should just buy this camera and cut you out of that loop. Or the other thing that I've started to notice is there are brands that are actively running television commercials, national television commercials in vertical mode and then blurring out the sides. Or Samsung is running commercials saying, hey, this phone can capture in 8K. That is professional quality video. Well, if you can get professional quality video out of a cell phone or a camera that anyone can go in and pick up at Best Buy, then why should someone pay your DP rate? And that's really the danger, I think, of just throwing out terms, because that's really not accurate. And while the tool might be capable, it's really the investment in the skills and the investment in understanding the client that makes it whether that campaign is going to be successful or not.
yeah, totally true. The challenge of the evolvement of the mid-camera market and also of the cell phone market. Yeah, I'm always, when the new iPhone is there, I'm always asking what can it shoot now? So but really interesting that you mentioned that. One further question I wanted to ask, if you're what would you say, what is the Komodo image look like in comparison to the Monstro? Because when I first shot with it, because it doesn't really matter, right? Because when you shoot in retro, you can change the tint however you want to. But I felt like when I first used the Komodo, the colors look a little bit more magenta. Because I always was used like that, the reds look more like greenish, and also when you're shooting like grass or something that's green, it on the normal or DSM-C2 cameras, it always looked like kind of really scientific, so really colorful green, if that makes any sense. And on the Komodo, it looks more kind of natural, that in the green is more yellow, what you see in true life. So therefore, I'm really interested. What's your thought on that?
Yeah. So what I've noticed the most about the Komodo, say, versus the even the helium and the Monstro, is that Komodo is using the older sensor, the Dragon sensor, which still has the Dragon sensor qualities, which is what you're referring to about that different tonality in the reds. And that is actually, in my opinion, also more pleasing for the greens, but it takes the edge off the contrast. Is really what, probably the best way that I could describe what it is that I see out of the Komodo. I think the Komodo needs good lenses. If you put any lens that is not a good or great lens on the Komodo, then the image begins to not look like it's coming out of a red. And I think that's the big takeaway for me with Komodo. like for me, even the stills lenses on the Komodo that I've used, I would rather use my cine primes over any of my stills lenses because the image just looks more pleasing. The coatings on the lenses are a little bit better. The warming of the Canon cine primes compared to the, say, size CP2s, where they're more contrasty and cooler, they complement that color contrast that Komodo is able to capture out of that sensor. And it's just more pleasing to my eye.
Mm-hmm. So for me personally, I've also shot with Zeiss lenses and also some Leica lenses that I really like. I've also talked with a friend who owned Canon Cine primes. And I'm not sure if that's true because I've never shot with these, but he basically said he feels like that the Canon Cine primes are kind of rehoused photo lenses because they still have like horrible focus breathing. What is your opinion on that?
So I probably would agree. The focus breathing is a real issue with the lenses, and that's even true of the compact zooms. It's there for sure. I think what is improved is the contrast, the way that the midtones roll off into the highlights. I think that's improved, and that's likely because of the coatings. But maybe the most important thing for me is the fact that I could put a 50, an 85, a 105, a 14 on two different cameras, and the colors line up perfectly. I don't have to manipulate them. And I think that's the big takeaway and why it is that I like them. But if you're doing rack focusing, those are probably not the right lenses because you will notice it, and if maybe your client won't notice it, but you'll notice it, and that's sometimes worse.
Yeah, that's true. What would be your advice when you look back to yourself when you just started out? So what would be the advice that you would give to any filmmaker who's just starting out?
I think I would tell myself to jump on that ship of identifying verticals and going after those vertical clients faster. Because trying to be a solution for everyone in the beginning, it was exhausting. And it was also, I was getting business, sure, but going from, a corporate shoot to a radio promotion type shoot, or a golf store, or being a drone operator in the morning and then being a event live stream type of camera operator in the afternoon, it was really exhausting. And I feel like I spent a lot of time figuring out that I can't be everything for everyone. And that sometimes collaborating with other people who are really good at being a drone operator, being good at being a gimbal operator, is smarter, better, more efficient, and you end up with a better project. And that took a long time for me to understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also think I also have always people asking, because they have like clients, right? And they have business and everything is nice. But they are always asking, how can I get the clients that I actually want? And it's perfectly what you just described, because I think how you position yourself in the market is really important also for the perception that you have on potential clients, right?
Right. Yeah, it's like one of those reasons why we don't do weddings. We won't do weddings, not because we don't have the equipment or can't learn how to do weddings, but because we want to be known as the commercial production house. And that's what we focus on. And I'm sure there are plenty of people that make a lot more money than we do only doing weddings. but that's just not the way that we wanted to position ourselves. And yeah, that happened that happened after basically being exhausted and spending a lot of money trying to figure out how do we grow this thing.
Do you also run ads on your business, like Facebook ads, or is it just like the phone calls that you reach out to, or what you do for marketing? Let me put it that way.
We don't run ads currently. It's our goal to get to that point where we are running ads because, as you said, we want to go after a specific type of client or production level. Like I want to shoot more $100,000 projects than I currently do. So that's what our ads will become when we get there. But our active marketing really, we get new clients through a little bit of prospecting. So that's where we identify someone and we go through the are they advertising or not process. That's how we get some new clients. Other clients come from either existing projects or clients that we're currently working with, where someone works there and, oh, my brother-in-law works at a similar company and they want to do something similar to what you did with us. So that happens actually kind of often. We started working with one fire department, and before we knew it, we had like 10 of them that became our clients. They only buy once a year from us, but that's 10 new projects that we didn't have before. And then they have other clients that run ambulance services that wanted similar work for their businesses, and we ended up with ambulance clients also. I mean, it's kind of interesting. We didn't actively go after them. They sort of came to us because of one project that we did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, also kind of from referrals. Referrals, oh my goodness, are also kind of important and also experienced in the same. By the way, if when I'm watching to your image, what lens are you using? Is it an 85? That's insane amount of bokeh. It's a 50. Okay, on 1.4 or what ISO are you? Oh my goodness, that is shallow. Just one question, because you started YouTube, I think, what was it, 2 years ago, something like that, or even?
Yeah, I've had a YouTube channel for a really long time. I started trying to be consistent with my uploads probably a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So what was your intention to start a YouTube channel?
Yeah, so my grand master plan was if I show people how it is that I work and then I need help, maybe someone watched my workflow, adapted some of my own workflow, and when I bring them on board, we have some synergy. That was my grand plan. Has it worked? To some extent. I got a call, for example, from Red, was it 2 weeks ago, where they literally said, hey, thanks for putting up Red content. It's really helping a lot of our Komodo users. And I was like, I mean, that's cool, because if I need another Komodo operator, and they are exposing the way that I expose Red, I know that my project is going to be a lot smoother. So that was really the whole plan and motivation behind things. And what it grew or is starting to grow into is if I can give back to the community, a way for them to either speed up their workflow or make a better decision about which piece of equipment they're going to use, then I feel like I'm not just talking about me, because I don't want it to be about me, because I'm not going to be here long term, right? Like I won't, at some point I say this all the time to my wife, I'm like, we all have an expiration date. At some point we're gone. But if I can teach someone how to keep whatever it is that they might be starting going beyond my time, then I'll feel like I was a good human. And that makes me feel good to think that.
Yeah, that's a really great inspiration. Thank you for that. For me personally, it was when I was in school or when I was young, I always wanted to be like a teacher. And then I never studied something that I can become a teacher in school, because that was the only thing in my mind that I was thinking that I can be a teacher. So I took a very different path, and then I went when I started filmmaking, and some other people were saying that my work is great and something like that. I was thinking like, hey, maybe my knowledge or the thing that I do it could be helpful to somebody else, and therefore I just started it to basically help other people. And it's really fun for me to all the comments that you get, and that you have so many people that are watching, and and you can also connect. I've met so many other great people that I only met through YouTube, which is crazy. I think it's totally insane.
Yeah, it's YouTube takes the boundaries of geography completely away. Like you and I wouldn't have met each other. You know, I lived in Germany for 6 years, and I lived in Freiburg, and
Do you speak any German?
no, unfortunately, no. It's, I wish, but yeah, no, I never, I was horrible at it, and everybody made it easy for me not to. So,
Yeah, I know.
you know, it was just like, no.
I was one time in Freiburg, but really nice area. What was the reason why you were living there?
I was there on a contract, so I was working, and yeah, and you know, I mentioned I was a programmer back in the day, so that's what I was doing, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed living in Germany.
Yeah, yeah, great to hear that. Yeah, Carlos, really thank you for all the insight that you brought into the discussion here, also to this whole episode. I really like your channel, and I already learned so much from you. So really, it was really great to chat with you in person. And also the kind of insights, as I've already said, that you gave are really amazing. One last thing, one last question that I wanted to ask: what is your goal that you want to, can be personal or even in business, that you want to achieve in 2021?
In 2021, I hope what I want to accomplish the most is for my business to operate even if I'm not there physically. I'm very hands-on in a lot of areas in what it is that I do, and I'm recognizing that I'm becoming a choke point. I'm becoming a potential problem, because if I'm not there, other things can fall apart. So I want to be I want to improve myself by learning to be a better leader, better owner, and allowing my crews, people on my team, to level up into those roles and positions that allow this machine to keep going. That's my goal.
So that you can take more time for family and whatsoever, right?
You know, not really just trying to be lazy, but I don't want to. I'm gonna use this example. I don't want to be hit by a bus and then somebody have to worry about their mortgage payment. I don't want that to happen.
Sure. Yeah. So thank you very much, Carlos, that you was here with me. As I've said, I will link Carlos' YouTube channel down below, and if you're not following him already, just do that. And yeah, it was really great to chat with you, and really appreciate that you took the time for having this conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity. I love your channel. I've been following your channel for a bit. And I always, and I think that this is and I say this on my channel, right? Like if we all share, we all learn from each other. And if we all learn from each other, we get better. And every time, like when I'm watching your content, I'm thinking, why didn't I think of that? Or how could I apply this or that to my own work? And I think that that's really important. So I was really happy when you reached out. This was awesome. I love talking shop, obviously. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so and thanks for everybody who was watching, and keep on watching. We will see you in the next time. Bye.